Good morning, and Robert has asked me to say hi to the people that would watch this online, through technology, and that's why I'm saying hi. I'm looking at the camera and saying hi. I don't know if they're going to get their money's worth or not, but the beauty about watching it at home, you understand. So you turn it off. I think that, yeah, that works. So, but yeah, fortunately, I just lead out. Oh, I think most of you know my name is Kevin Ritberger, and I teach this class once in a while. I wouldn't say the word teach. I lead out, and we start at 9:45, and you've been cheated a couple minutes already. So if you were tapping your foot at home going, oh, I just have to make it to church on Saturday to do this lesson study, I'm going to tell you right now, just kind of chill out. You'll get your money's worth, okay? So, again, the lesson itself was easy enough for me to stand up in front and because it's story format, okay? And there's like 4 or 5 stories there, maybe stories in stories, but there's 4 or 5 stories that I'm familiar with and that I can ask you guys questions about, so that and then I don't look too ignorant, because I kind of know the stories. Now, I had to read them again, because sometimes in your mind you think, well, I know it. I know what happened, but the person that wrote the lesson, I'm using my phone up here this morning, and so if you see me staring at that, I'm not looking at a ball game, or I use that. So I know you've been here before, and you've heard me tell you that some of the people, and Robert's asked that through the people that watch, that I'm going to take this, and you're going to talk so that people online can hear what you have to say. I've said it before that there was online listeners, so to speak, that was more enthused with what you guys had to say than myself. Okay, so don't feel like you're on the spot. There's not that many of us this morning, and if I come up, you say something, because the people that watch, they want to hear you say something. Okay, really. So if I bring nobody, the material this morning is not a hot topic, so you'll be, just some thoughts there. It's going to be easy for you. Okay, so the lesson itself is titled, my phone went long on me, laying up treasure in heaven. And I just want to say there's like 4 stories, whether we get them covered or not. The story of Noah, the story of Abraham, you have the story of his nephew Lot. Then we worked Abraham's grandson Jacob, and then finish it out with talking about Moses. And given the time in this group here, we might cover all those stories. I'm not going to read this to you, the whole thing, okay? You didn't come, but I will read some of the story format, okay? I'll read some of the texts here that give us the gist behind what's important today about Abraham, or what was important about Noah. So I will read those up front, but I'm not here to drone on, so to speak. I'm going to read this text to you that is called the memory text. This is from Mark 8:36 and 37. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? Do you mind? This is on Saturday. I'm just going to read a little bit of this on Saturday. Maybe all of the paragraphs. Jesus gave us the world's best investment strategy when he said, do not lay up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. That's Matthew 6:19-20. Jesus concludes his investment strategy by saying, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." In other words, that was Matthew 6:21. In other words, show me what you spend your money on, and I'll show you where your heart is. Because wherever you put your money, your heart is sure to follow, if it's not already there. Do you want a heart for the kingdom of God? Question mark. If so, then put your money where it will reap eternal rewards. Put your time and your money and prayer into God's work. If you do, you will soon become even more interested in that work, and your heart will follow as well. This week, we will review texts and illustrations that show us how to store up treasures in heaven and ultimately reap an eternal reward. Went to a business meeting Sunday, and pastor here, he's here in the back. He stood right up front here, and he had to talk about money. So we're talking about money here, and I'd like to say is it's verse saying time and money, okay, not just money. So I always think about just the mention of money, okay, and there's no way that I'm going to stand up in front and walk around this room. I don't know all of you that well. I don't know where you work or what you've done. I don't know those things. But normally, here in the United States of America, everybody works, has a job, they make a career out of getting a paycheck, and then eventually you hit Social Security. I was talking to a guy here the other day. He works at a tire place. Known him for years. He told me, he said, I'm 66. And he told me, he said, I got 8 months before I got Social Security. And I said, you quit? And I said, no, I'll probably work. And he told me some gist of, everybody, that's the way it works. You work, and then, so the whole money thing, though, is, again, I can't walk around this room, and I'm not always going to look at Elaine. I look at Eddie back there. But I'm not going to, you can't walk around the room and just go, yeah, you can give more. You can give more. You can't do that. But I've come to church a lot in my life, and I've finally figured out the money thing. Finally figured it out. There's different levels of where you're at in your careers, what you can give, and all that. But I finally figured it out that I say kind of at peace, so to speak. Because the question is do I give enough? Okay, so our stories, we're going to look at Abraham, Jacob, Lot. We're going to look at those. But the ultimate thing is we read the verse. Do I lay up enough in heaven? Do I give enough of my time or my money that goes towards that? Say my salvation, or do I just chase money? So where am I at peace with this? I wouldn't call it a strategy, but at peace with this. When I'm looking around the room, and I wonder, well, how can I sit here and talk about this? And where am I at? How can I encourage? Maybe I'm all greed. Well, this is where I come to peace at it. I've said up front, I've said this story before. Hopefully I don't bore you. But when I got married, and you know how everybody uses those married stories and they're a little ha-ha-ha? Well, this ain't going to be a little ha-ha-ha story. I'm not going to share secrets. Okay, there's no secrets here. But I'm a pretty clean guy. Not too tidy, though. Okay? Talked to a guy yesterday, the same age as me, whose mom, probably 82 years old, and does the books on the farm and ranch. And I said, and his mom's name's Jackie. Okay? Well, I was telling him, all right, tax season's on. He caught me on the phone, tax season's on. So I told him, I got the papers laid out on the floor. He told me on the phone right away, he said, that wouldn't do for Jackie. That's his mom. Oh, really? He said, no. I said, really? Maybe you could put something on the table, but not on the floor. I said, well, I have piles. Actually, just few. So when I got married, I'm clean. Very clean. Wow, can't brag about it. I mean, you poke holes through that probably. But I think I am. Tidy, I'm not. I'm not. You know, there can be clutter. But if it doesn't smell, why would you complain? And I'm not a hoarder. I don't bring stuff into my place, okay? I've never been that way. In fact, we got married, lived in a mobile home. I told my wife, look at those bare walls. Look at those bare rooms. If we put stuff in here, it's going to be harder to clean, okay? Because I will clutter it, because that's just my nature. Not that I'm a hoarder, but if we start putting stuff in here, then I can't have room for papers on the floor, my business papers. Okay, so where's this going? She's tidy, all right? All right, what does this have to do with the money situation, laying up treasures in heaven? Do you do enough? Well, it comes down to getting married. Somebody is always going to be cleaner than the next person. And you can walk in that house, and you're going to say, this is a nice house. It's clean. But there's a fight going on. You don't even know. Because somebody's always a little cleaner. Always. Somebody has to be. Is there such a thing as two people living together are equal when it comes to that? There's no way. No way. There's absolutely no way that two people could see eye to eye on that issue. So where's that leave the whole money thing we're talking about today, or your time, your money? What I'm saying is that everybody's different. And everybody's going to give in a certain way. They're going to sacrifice, so to speak. You know, they determine, well, this is what I have, but I could give more. Everybody's going to be different. There is no way that you're going to have a measuring tool that I said earlier. I could go around and go, you know, I can't go around and go, yeah, you can lay up more treasure in heaven. You can lay up more treasure in heaven. There's no way I can do that. There's no measuring tool. So likewise, going into somebody's house that's in order and looks nice, how can you tell who gives the most or who's the cleanest? You don't know. But both people are trying, true? Both people are trying. So when we talk, and that's the only way I can come to terms with, do you give enough that time or that money? Yeah, that's just it. That's the only way I can come up with that. There's no way that there's no measuring tool. There's no way that you could see that you've met enough. Now, as the lesson study explored the fact that I read the verse that if you store it up in heaven, it's an investment strategy. Okay? But therein, kind of a hard way to look at it is that it's not like an IRA or 401k. You don't just do a little and then it grows. You see, it's some people could live their whole life and just do a little bit. And that's everything. The next person does their whole life and gives and gives and gives. But there's parables about that too. That treasure that's laid up in heaven it's different. It's different for everybody. So I'm just before I ask some questions here, just on that note, before we look at Noah, just so you're awake, I did have, and just to back this up, my story that everybody's at a different level. Here's a very, it's not even really a joke. How many people remember George Burns? Okay? Do you remember George Burns? I remember. My kids don't know George Burns. There's people that they're 2 years younger than me don't know George Burns. But he's left over from Bob Hope days and George Burns and all those. And you look back and you wonder, were those jokes even funny? So humor goes a different direction. But he was talking about what he grew up with. I guess he had a lot of brothers and sisters. And he was talking about, wealth. Did they have enough? And he said he grew up. Maybe it was I think it was East Coast. It was a big city. I don't remember the city. And he said they were poor, and there was a lot of siblings in this one apartment. And here's the little joke. He said his mom would tell him that he said, you should be happy, you should be thankful, because there's little kids in the world that don't have a floor to sleep on. Okay, that was a joke. There was no bed. He was a dry sense of humor. He said, my mom would tell me that. He said, I got the floor with a blanket. There was too many of us, and there wasn't any beds. So anyway, not much of a joke this morning, but I always thought about that. He turned it into a joke, but sometimes you better be happy with what you have. And so with regards to everybody's at a different level, I guess that's why I'm telling what George Britt's at. I never grew up that way. I didn't. Everybody's at a different level. So I'm going to, just before we read the story of Noah, I'm going to put some people on the spot. Okay? And I know this is just going to be a generality. Don't make it hard. Okay? Don't give me goofy looks this morning. But Roy, I'm going to ask you a question. How much treasure or money do you need to lay up in heaven? Now that means, how much are you willing to forfeit on this earth, say time or money? And that was put in the lesson. I'm not making that up. That's exactly what the lesson's talking about. How much is there a value on that? And does it grow by interest in heaven, like a bank account? So I'm just saying, how much are you willing to give up? I mean, is there a number here? So Roy, can you? Yeah.
So I was going to bring up a comment anyway.
Yeah, that's
so
fine.
This is very perfect.
Go ahead with the comment. Yeah.
Well, I think it goes along with what answer you're wanting. But especially as we come to church and we're meeting together discussing these things, I hope all of our intentions are that I guess that we leave a mark with our neighbors or with in the congregation, that we are living a Christian life. I've had to present things as a nurse and as a working in cardiac rehab part-time. Went to quite a few seminars and things. One thing that's always struck me as we talk about these things, what do I have to give? And one of the most powerful statements, I guess it can be secular. To me, it is how I relate to God. That can I feel good about planting a tree that I'll never enjoy the shade of, but I can look forward to bettering my life here, being grateful that I have something to offer to a next generation, showing that I'm concerned, getting the right words out here, that I want to represent God's love too. If he doesn't come in my lifetime, that I pass something on, that's my riches.
Yeah. Turn that off so don't. I came here this morning talking about what you're going to give, but what was said here right now, I never thought about that. Right, I eventually might have come around to it, but I'm glad what was brought up is that you can live for yourself today. And like you said, that tree. Why plant that tree? Because you're never going to enjoy it. So the thing is I see what you're saying today is that it's the me generation, or me now, and I could see whatever's being. Yeah, I never thought of that. Is that mark you're going to leave on your neighbor? Say, if you don't, how can I say? A lot of times it's time. If you don't, it's not about forking the money out. It's when the neighbors or your friends look over and they see that you sacrifice something because, I'm going to use the word church, mattered to you. Yeah, you sacrifice. In fact, I've done the math on that, okay? I've been looking for a used vehicle. And I've been trying to figure out, how do you pay for a $35,000 vehicle? Been trying to do the math on that. And it used to be 22 or 26. I've figured it out, Elaine. Based on a 7-year note, you pay $5,000 a year. You can get up to 35. You still got interest on that, so my numbers aren't perfect. But you stop paying tithe. Okay, now for the camera, you don't. Okay, you don't do that. But what I'm saying is you look around and you look at that. I look around in the community. How do they pay for a $35,000 vehicle? I'm going to tell you. You don't pay tithe. You pay for $35,000. See, everybody's at that mark. $40,000 income, $50,000, maybe your wife, and that. Everybody's at the same money. It's all the same money. But I see that. I see that. That's how you make those things pay. But it's not just about tithe. I'm just saying there are some people that you'll know, and they don't have to go to this church. You'll see some people in your life that you look over and you know, boy, you did something. You didn't have to do that. And like you said, planting that tree. You didn't have to do it. Or a sanctuary, yes. I said earlier is that, talking about the money. But I like what you said this morning is that the laying up. Okay, story about Noah. I'm not going to read all the verses because looking at the time, and I'm going to ask somebody a question in here. But look, they said about Noah, and it took him, guys, I hate to look around, 100 years or 120 years to build that boat? 120. Okay. It mentioned, not me, it mentioned in the lesson that he could have been building his house. I'm glad I got done with, I'm not done with mine. Totally. I've been building a house. I moved out of that mobile home. How many years? Yeah, 4 years building this house. I moved out of this mobile home that I told you that was going to stay empty, so it was easier to clean. Well, 2 kids let everything come in it. So I'm about done with that house. Here we're talking about Noah, and he built that boat rather than focusing on his house. And you can see that I could come to church this morning. I could feel good. I'm not one of those persons because I already got my house built. I got that out of the way. Now I can look at that sanctuary, so to speak. But the thing is what happens if Elaine's building a house? I mean, I can't sit here and go, well, that's it. You can't do that. I said earlier, everybody's at a different place in their life. That's the way it is. So back to what they said about Noah not done. I'm talking about Noah. Is there any other sacrifices other than his time? They're bringing. He stored up riches in heaven. That's the lesson. Is there something I'm missing about Noah? Was it just that he sacrificed his time for that boat? Lane, if you want to say something, don't you just stop right here. Yeah.
He gave up everything and followed the Lord. He left his family. He left everything that he knew and understood.
Noah building the boat. Noah building his boat. He didn't leave his family, so to speak, did he? Noah.
Oh, I'm thinking of Abraham.
Yeah, that's all right. I thought, yeah.
But
go ahead.
He gave up everything. to follow the Lord and listen to what the Lord said. And Noah, when he built the ark,
yes,
he built the ark. He done that according to what God told him to do. He listened to the Lord. He didn't listen to the people. He listened to what the little small voice was telling him to do.
So when I look at, what did he give up, though, when they looked in storing riches in heaven? He as far as and I'm not picking Noah apart. I just had to look at the story again. I don't think he moved away from home. He had 120 years to get that built. And you've seen this man right here making fun of building my house. It took 5. All right? So I don't think I'm too bad off. So in 120 years, I'm just thinking about the story. Chances are he probably did something else. I don't think it was, I've always wondered. He probably was a farmer, he probably raised his own food. I mean, there was something else he was doing other than just building a boat. So, but still the sacrifice is there, his time. I do understand. But I was just looking at the character because the author and the lesson is really bringing...
But he preached the Word of God.
Yeah, okay.
And all the time that he was building that ark, he preached the Word of God and told people what to expect. And they laughed at him.
Yeah. Okay.
So he gave up his dignity for the Lord.
Yes. Gave up his dignity for... Okay. And that's another thing about giving his time. He not only gave his time, but it's another thing. It's hard to stand up there and let people laugh at you. Okay, I'm glad you said that, because it's a whole lot easier giving money than having people laugh at you. Yeah, I understand that. Is there a comment? Right? Oh, here, Jen. Yeah, this is the only time I'm going to come back that far back. All right. So. But I said, people want to hear you talk.
Yes, you read my mind anyway.
Okay, all right.
Yes, so as you rightfully said, it's very easy to give money, give time, but to be labeled as a conspiracy theorist, because who had seen rain from the skies before then? It sounds quite nice to us, but no one has ever seen rain from the skies. And what happened to his brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and uncles and church brethren and everyone else? Where were they? So for someone to be saying something that has never been seen before, the scientists and great thinkers of his day had never said such a thing, for him to be laughed at while he's trying to build and preach, it could not have been an easy thing for so many years.
Good point. Yes. Thank you for that. I hope you know that these things that read way above my opinions and such, but I watched a whimsical movie, which is a story. It was probably a book, but it was about a guy that was, it was whimsical. And God started talking to him. And God was the actor Morgan Freeman. And it turned out that he was, I don't know, one day he had sandals, and the next day he started looking like Noah, and he was supposed to build a boat. Whimsical comedy. I just thought, okay, I'm going to watch this show. Is it going to be blasphemy? Because it's a whimsical comedy. They didn't make fun. But the one part about that movie, Hollywood doesn't ever want to leave God in the right place. Never does. Okay? That's just the way it is. So that's what I was wondering, where this was going. But as this story unfolded, his ark wasn't that huge that he was building, and eventually it was whimsical. Eventually, he got a long beard, and he's like one of those things, he couldn't shave it off. Couldn't get his beard shaved off. He's always looking more like Noah. You even know that was the comedy. How do you know what Noah looks like? But God would appear to him in the elevator at his work, and his co-workers were all wondering where his clothing style was going. And so God would appear in the elevator and say, how's it going? And he would tell God, he says, these people are laughing at me. He says, my friends are laughing at me. My kids are laughing at me. And God would say, so why don't you talk to him? And he says, what am I going to talk to him about? And he said, and God told him, well, maybe they want answers. And he said, what do they want answers about? What do they, and he says, well, don't you think you're doing the right thing? And what do you tell God? No. See, it wasn't revealed in the story plot. It wasn't revealed what he was going to do. But anyway, I thought it was all right. Whoever wrote the story was realistic. Because Noah probably got tired of being laughed at. But what are you going to do when God says they want answers? Those people aren't just laughing at you. Not laughing, they want answers. And so, anyway, the movie's finished itself all right. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. So, but back to what you said about being laughed at. Boy, that's not good. Money's always easier than being laughed at. It's always easy to believe in a cause, but never say, yeah. Talked about Noah. I thought there was one other aspect. We're going to, based on our time, we're doing great for time. I'm glad that's moving around because that's supposed to. We're going to talk about Abraham, okay? And I'm going to, just because I'm looking at the audience, and you helped me with that 120 years on Noah. So if I know the audience online might want me to read some more verses, but given the stories, I'm just going to go into it, okay? I'll ask a few questions up front here. Abraham left. What was the town? I'm going to, this man with the, right there, looking at his lesson. Where did he leave? It's a 2-letter word, isn't it? Okay, he left Ur. I never understood what he did in that little town or big town, why God decided I want to talk to him. I don't know. But he took his nephew with him, Lot. Did you ever wonder if Lot and Abraham ever talked about religion? Do you think that together they talked about worshiping God as we know God?
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, Lane says right up front, yeah, sure they did. They left, and he left all his family. Took a little bit, because he had to travel light. God told him where to go. And back to the sacrificing, putting up treasures in heaven, rather than hoarding your time and your money on earth. Is there anything that I'm missing about Abraham right now? We talked about Noah. What was brought up is that not only his time, Noah, is that he had to sit there and endure the ridicule. As far as Abraham, did he have to deal with any ridicule? It's kind of easy to leave town, wasn't it? Any thoughts on that?
I didn't think it was easy to leave.
It wasn't easy to leave.
No.
Okay.
Can you imagine you just up and leaving and going someplace far, far away and never seeing your family?
No, that's always given me, that's I'm adjusting this, guys, because I hit it. That always threw me for a loop. There was a guy that came to church here. His name was Wally Spirey. Yes, and Wally Spirey grew up on the North Dakota-South Dakota border, and he told me in that little town that his dad's sister almost went on a date with Lawrence Welk. Okay, all right. So I mentioned something earlier about the actors or entertainers that come and gone. But I would think everybody knows who Lawrence Welk was. Well, anyway, he married his wife, and I think she was in the same county. She just passed away. Well, anyway, he said, they came to church here. She's the only person that ever, come up and she says, I know how to milk cows. I don't, okay? But she says, I know how to milk cows. She said, that was my job. She said, before I went to high school. And, before she went to high school in the morning. That was my job. And anyway, she passed away about a year ago. But he told me the stories that he joined the Air Force. I think he got married, or he wasn't married or engaged. And he ended up in Alaska. And he told me something like, he's living in Idaho now. He told me something like he wrote home to his wife or his fiance, he said they couldn't make a phone call on that Air Force base. And he said something like, I don't want to be a wow factor at this point. 1.5 to 2 years, he just wrote letters. I'm like, what was this? I mean, like Revolutionary War? Okay. I mean, what are you talking about here? Just writing letters. He said, well, that's just the way it was where I was at. I don't know if he could have tried harder going into a general store and, phone, but he told me that. I mean, there's some time there. He might have said he called once, but it was something like 1.5 to 2 years, and it was just letters. And so back to, I'm sidetracking the story. Yeah, Abraham left. And so, I'm not scatterbrained. They brought up a story that Jacob, when he had to leave, it was his own fault that he left. Jacob deceived his brother. He headed out and said he never seen his mom again. His mom, just so I don't look scatterbrained, was Rebecca. Okay? That's what this the lesson brought up. And it's kind of, well, there was the fallout. But yeah, he... Anyway, that's about being, but back to Abraham being away from family. Yeah, he left. And yeah, so I've always lived kind of the same place. And I don't know if I'm looking at the audience here. Most people see the kids and family, don't you? And most people do. So Abraham started his family. Most of his immediate family was there, but obviously, I think did you say his brothers and sisters? Where were they at? Yeah. I had, I think I told you this before, is that my grandpa was born here, but his dad came over from Germany. And it wasn't until I was in high school and college that I kind of realized, doing the genealogy, so to speak, is that that'd be my great-grandfather come from Germany. Went through Ellis Island, seen Statue of Liberty. Got on a train, come all the way out here. Him and his wife. Actually, a couple kids came first with an aunt and uncle. They said a couple kids first on a ship. And they all came on a ship, though. And so the first older kids, older girl and older boy, came over with an aunt or uncle. And they came like 1.5 years before. And then come mom and dad with the little ones. Okay? And I always wondered about, them leaving there, we'd call it home. I'm sure it's home. To come out here. And but here's the kicker on this. When I said I kind of figured things out, is that when we got here, my great-grandfather's wife, her parents were already here. Okay? They were living in a little farmhouse up the road. Made it easier. Yeah. There was family here already. So if I stood up in front and told you, oh yeah, they left all. No, a lot of family came. His parents didn't come, but when he got here, her parents were here. So anyway, that's my little side story. So Abraham taking that risk. Yeah, but where's the story at though? He wasn't sent to be a missionary, was he? He was just saying it's going to be better where you're going. So unless there's somebody here in the audience can tell me, he sacrificed. But I'll let the man with the bandage on his face first, and then behind. Okay, go ahead.
He left his home and was wandered the rest of his life.
Oh, the lesson brought that up. He left his home. And he was a wanderer the rest of his.
He wandered, all over. He lived in tents.
Yeah. When I read the lesson, I thought, when the author brought, he wandered all the time, I thought, no, he went to Canaan. That was his place. Well, no, I forgot. They went to Egypt. I mean, that was, and at best, he never had a foothold there. There was no Jerusalem. There was none of those little towns. He had no foothold in that country.
Well, he didn't own anything. He bought a field, but to bury his wife. But he left a home environment to live in tents. Wherever God told him to go, he went.
Yeah.
And so you say, what kind of future did he have? He just wandered the land.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he did have a future. Nothing on this earth
His home was in heaven. Right. That's
Yes.
That's what he kept his eyes on.
Yes. Yes. Here.
I think the point about, was he a missionary? Just, he was blessed. So he continued to follow God's leading and serve God, and as a result, he was blessed. So those that were willing and able to see that, you are a missionary. You are representing God and what following that leading can do for your direction.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it when you guys. Was there a comment in the back? No. Oh. Well, please. I'm a little slow, but I try. Okay. Here you go.
Just to follow up on the missionary concept, we often misunderstand the concept as if it is a job position that you stand up and preach or conduct Bible study. The missionary concept is really by the way you live. As you live in the community, you represent God. And by grace, someone will come to you and say, look, you are different. What makes you so different? Why is these things around us not ruffling you? Then you have an opportunity to minister. So let's not take the missionary concept as I put on a suit, I stand on the platform and preach. It's the way we live. And that's what was paramount in the Abraham story. He lived it. If you read his life, everywhere he went, he planted an altar.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Oh. I only turn it off and on because then you get that back. Yeah.
Thank you. And in the same breath, God told him that by him shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. So by his commitment to God, his faith in God, his example where he went and the legacy that he left behind, we now have the blessings and extension to us, the rest of the world, those of us who are grafted in, who are not direct descendants from Abraham.
You know, when I see that you mentioned descendants of Abraham, I always, because he's such a pillar, I always get to thinking he owned the country. But it's wrong to think that because he was a wanderer, the statements. We got 10 minutes, but we're going to talk about Lot. And before we finish, I'm going to tell you a little treasure story, okay? Just because it's whimsical. All right? But we're going to talk about Lot. Does he get a bad rap? Okay, because they bring him into this about storing your treasures up in heaven, and it mentions at first him and Abraham part ways because it just made sense. It's because he kept his affairs. They weren't a corporation. Okay, he kept his flocks and herds, and he said, "Well, Abraham, where would you want to go?" And Lot said, "I like that right down there, better water and everything." And Abraham said, "Okay, I'll go over here." So it says that Abraham was more giving, and just wanted to get along. And Lot was enthusiastic. Well, I'll get ahead. And then eventually, it didn't mention in the lesson, but it says that old Abraham bailed him out because of his wrong choice. He went that way. The grass and the plains and the meadows weren't a problem, but he ended up in Sodom. Okay, just as a means of, if you remember, why did Abraham have to bail him out? Because somebody came and ransacked the city, took him.
There's a battle or war.
A battle or war.
And those cities lost, and the conquering armies took everything, including people, all the goods, and left. And Abraham got his people together. He had 300 armed men.
Yeah.
He had a big group of them. His servants, and they went after him and saved him.
Saved him, yes. Now, at that point in his life, I can't say that. I don't know if Sodom was really a bad town. by the time he got there, maybe I'm getting some shakes in the head. But anyway, they said the author of the lesson said, yeah, and he went back. So the thing is, oh, okay. You never really think about in that story. It's like, why did you get out of there? And he went back. But the thing is Abraham was on that dusty road. The travelers came by. One of them was Jesus. And it mentioned in there that they were saying, we're going to burn that town. And Abraham said, you're going to burn Sodom down? What happens if there's so many people there? What happens if there's so many good people there? Would you destroy it? There's that many people there? And you remember the discussion. And the thing, is who's this guy Lot? Evidently, Jesus was listening, knew that Abraham was talking about Lot. Lot? Well, I'm going to use a bad word this morning. I said, was he a loser? Was he worth salvaging? I mean, everybody's worth salvaging. I know that. But the thing is you wonder about Lot. He's brought into the story of our lesson because he might be the poster child for those that just laid up riches on earth and didn't worry about heaven. Okay? But the thing is I've always, maybe, nobody wants to get cheated out. Nobody wants to be the poster child of a bad person. So I think about Lot sometimes and think, he might not have been that bad a guy. All right, one comment here. Go ahead.
Well, remember, too, Lot chose to go with Abraham. Lot left home also. He chose to go with Abraham. So I think, at least at that point in his life, he was willing to follow a godly man and probably had some type of relationship with God. But over time, even though he got rich, his heart went someplace else, and he selfishly said, I'll take the best area, even though Abraham was the elder, should give him more honor and let him choose first. Lot said, okay, I'll go ahead and choose. And he just wandered away to the point where he moved into the city itself, and it was a wicked city. And he should have known that that's a wicked city. He shouldn't be there. So over time, he sort of wandered.
The thing, though, is at the end, I mean, there was always, the story a lot, it ends with the fact that he was able to leave town, though, when the angels came. Go ahead.
To continue what you were saying, and with what I was going to say, Lot would not have been saved if he would have not practiced hospitality. So yes, he made some bad decisions. I think we can all agree with that. But he wasn't so far down that he wasn't grieved by the sins, that he didn't try in his own way to practice and follow Abraham's example of practicing hospitality. That is why he was saved.
That's good. Yes. In the end, the husband, he was a nice guy. In the end, he genuinely was a nice guy. He was definitely fiscally motivated. Go ahead.
And I think that's true. He definitely had a battle going on, right, between good, bad, and good. What was he being drawn to? And he was attracted to the city and all the things in it. And I think that's part of the lesson for us. And he lost his family because of that attraction. So ultimately, he got rescued and was able to be saved. But because he wasn't strong and he couldn't resist that, he then raised his children in that environment. They were all exposed. He didn't, the spirit of prophecy talks about him not turning immediately when he was told to leave. And because of that hesitation is part of the reason his wife could look back, because that longing for that life. And I think that's part of the lesson is the longing. What are we longing for? Are we longing for the wonderful things that we are around us in this world, or are we longing for something else? And that was part of the lesson from Lot.
Yeah, it's one of those tragic stories that novels are written about, where the complication is that given his wife and his kids, is that the opportunity that came to him that day, had he told them a little bit more why they left and came out, told them a little bit more about Uncle Abraham, they might have been in a better spot to choose to save themselves, so to speak. And the thing is the sad part is that he knew enough to know, you know, you got to do the right thing now. But his family wasn't at that point. Like, what are you talking about? And yeah, it's just, you know, a tragic story. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person telling my family, you know, say, no, we got to go now. You know, make people wonder, what are you talking about? They're not going to believe you at that time. And I'm not saying about getting out of the city, so to speak. I'm talking about when you're talking about doing a career change or something like that, or you're talking to kids, saying, no, you don't want that job, or you want this, you know, you got to make that, and they look at you and say, yeah, but the money's there. And you go, well, no, you don't want that money. There's been a lot of career fairs and everything at daughters in high school, and they're positive, you know, career fairs and such like that. But I remember back when I went to college, and I was talking to a gentleman, and why are you going to take this degree or that degree? And I said, well, I'm going to pick this one. And this, I was just taking, you know, the basics that first year. I said, why do you want to do that? I said, it makes the most money. And he goes, I was just a kid, you know. He goes, yeah, right. He said, that will last. He said, you need to find something you want to do. And he said, yeah, well, I don't want to be in school. So I don't want to be here. So if I'm going to pick something, and he goes, yeah, he just laughed. He said, well, you better think that through. Well, what did I have a frame of reference? I didn't have a frame of reference. I got to end in 2 minutes. I'm going to tell you, this is again, just a little story I had about riches or whatever. About it may or may not even tie into a lesson here learned. This is not my story. I've never stood up in front and told you some great round. And my stories are always someone else's stories. Okay, and I do got to end in 2 minutes. But this is a story about my grandfather. This was in the 70s, late 70s. Metal detectors had come out. You even see it on TV. They'd work them into a show or something. They were the rage. Metal detectors, you know. They used to use them on the beaches in California or something, find stuff. And I just remember as a kid, I was 5, 6 years old, like, you're going to find treasure. I mean, money, gold, you know, that's a metal detector, and that was the technology, okay? And again, they're getting to be affordable, you know, some neighbor would pick one up. They weren't just used by the military, find mines or something. It was a hobby, recreation. So there was a guy that worked for my grandfather. He actually milked cows, and he got one. And he was asking my grandfather, hey, I'm going to go do some old homesteads. I'm going to go check some stuff out. Hey, where's that old school at that used to be down the road? And my grandfather, you know, he was in his 60s. And my grandfather's, you know, he's no schmo. You know, he's like, oh, you got that. And he said, all right, well, the school's down there. And he said, so what are you going to find? Well, people are coming and going. And he said, well, that schoolhouse might have had 10 people. So I'll go down there and maybe find a, you know, change, money, coins. And my grandfather laughed at him and said, nah. So that machine ain't going to do that. You ain't going to find nothing. He said, no, this machine finds stuff. And he said, my grandfather told him, so I'll tell you how it is. Okay, I went to that school like in 1920. He said, everybody knew when they had a dime. And by lunch, if that dime wasn't in your pocket, it was out on that playground. And you told all your friends you lost your dime. And he said they were all looking under rocks and asked you, so you're upside down over here? Well, you're playing tag over here. And they'd look here, and he said, you'd have all 10 kids helping you look for that dime. And you found it. Because when you found that dime, it shared. Maybe a little candy or something. He said, everybody dug for that dime. He said, because it mattered. And he said, you're not going to find any dimes. So that's my story. I got to end. It's a treasure story. You can think about what you want. I always thought about that. Are you wrong? I think that, but how can something find something that's not there? And everybody's treasure is different. Of course, that story I'm giving you was about money, but it was about the effort of, I don't know, you think about all those kids digging around looking for that. They were doing the right thing, though. They were doing it for their friends. So I don't know if that's a Christian thing today or not, but that's just my story. All right, if you can bow your heads. Dear Jesus, thank you for our lesson study, and it's really nice out. Thank you, and please go with us. Amen.